All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. In the previous video, I was going to go over Chapter 4, but instead I kind of took a detour and wrote a couple programs for Chapter 4. All right, they're a payroll app that I'm going to continue to work on as we go on in the class here. So this will be the true Chapter 4. All right, so we'll go into arithmetic expressions, numeric and string data, distinguishing between variables and constants, talking about int data type, double data type, decimal data type, bool data type, and string data type, distinguishing between many terms like literal value, null value, empty string, concatenate, append, escape sequence, string literal, verbatim string literal, raw string literal, and nullable data type. Talk about the order of precedence for arithmetic expressions, distinguish between implicit and explicit casting, distinguishing between value types and reference types, talk about how casting can be used to convert data from one form to another, and finally, describe and discuss the differences between class scope and method scope. All right, so again, we are truly into Chapter 4 here in this lecture. And I'd like this to go full screen if it would let me. All right. There we are. I guess it was here. All right, so these are the built-in data types. The thing to realize that when you talk about byte, sbyte, short, ushort, int, uint, long, ulong, float, double, and decimal. In other words, the first 11 of 13, those are all data types. Numeric data types. Byte, I believe, has a range of like 0 to 255. All right. And then there's sign byte, short, which has a range to about 32,767. Int, which is up in the billions. Long, which is a number I can't even pronounce. Float, which you'll hardly ever use. You'll almost always use double or decimal. Float, double, and decimal are ones that can potentially have a decimal point in them. Char, this is not JavaScript. In JavaScript, I could have said int name equal, and I could have said I could have said, for example, let first name equal double quote Jeff double quote semicolon, or let first name equal single quote Jeff single quote semicolon. Can't do that in C#. In C#, char is for a single character. That's what you put into single quotes. Strings go into double quotes always. And bool is true or false. All right. We will be using camel notation, where we'll be starting our names with lowercase letters and then capitalizing the first letter in the words that follow. So in other words, if I came through here and I had a decimal that was called tax rate, I would do it like this. Now, some books will show it like this. Just don't do that. You're better off doing it like this. This is how everyone does it. And if it's 3 words, so if it would be string, 3 words, here, you do it like that. All right? That is camel notation. I do camel notation both for variable names and for method names. All right? What you'll find is typically, if not always, Muroc here will use not camel notation for method names. They'll capitalize this letter, in other words, the first letter. Oh, that was interesting. Okay, let's jump back. Try that again. Here we go. All right. Now, you can do this if you want, the first line is declaring the variable, the second line is initializing the variable. But if you know what its value is, you'll typically do them together and declare and initialize in one statement. Also, I don't like this. You can literally do that in different ways, but I don't like that. I would just as soon have you do an int x equals 0, colon, then on a new line, int y equals 0. I don't see the benefit of doing it this way. All right. For Pascal, that, there's a Pascal notation for constants. No, I don't agree with that. I was always taught, and I was a professional C programmer, not C sharp, but C programmer, and our constants always had every letter capitalized. I will expect you to do the same. All right? And it's const followed by the data type, followed by the name of your constant in all caps, equal, and then the value. So when you declare a constant, you initialize it always at the same time. Now, here are your arithmetic operators. The first four should be, no problem to anybody. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The next one is modulo, or sometimes called modulus. It is the remainder operator. So in other words, if I come through and do something like this, if I say 5 modulo 3, well, back in, when I learned this stuff as a young kid, it was equals 1 R2, which meant I had a remainder of 2. Well, when you're actually doing that here, what you get is 2. Okay? It's just the remainder operator. When do you use that? Dollars and cents, feet and inches, etc. Times, hours, minutes, seconds. There's different ways that you may use that. All right? Plus and minus, this is just the unary plus and minus. So in other words, if I want to say int age equal 21, it is permissible in this language to do this. I don't think I've ever seen that in any application code, but you can do it. Of course, if it is negative, you want to put the negative sign in there. And the last thing that's there is the the binary, well, I guess it is unary. The plus plus and the minus minus, which either adds 1 or subtracts 1. So I could come in here and do this, for example. Int age equal 21. Now, it's your birthday, and you go from 21 to 22. You could say age equal age plus 1. Totally fine, but a lot of typing. There's a shortcut here where you could say age plus equal 1, less typing. Or you could say plus plus age, or you could say age plus plus. Any one of those four will add 1 to the variable age. All right, let's say I have another variable here. So let's say I've got a variable, we'll call that A. And now I've got another integer variable here called B that doesn't have a value. I want to show you the difference between these two because there is a difference. All right, so if I say B equals A plus plus, it's different than saying B equal plus plus A. All right, this is the post increment operator. So when you get done with this, B equals 21 and A equals 22. So that's the post increment operator. Hopefully that's what I said the first time. This is the pre-increment operator. So B equals 22 and A equals 22. All right, so that's how those are used. Okay, but the plus plus and minus minus, these two can only be used to add 1 or subtract 1. And the minus minus works the same way, except it's the decrement as opposed to the increment. And they give you a bunch of examples, so you can go in there and take a look at these when you get a chance. All right? And more with decimals. Here's the assignment operator. So I showed you the plus equals. There's also a minus equals, a times equals, a divide equals, and a modulo equals. In addition, for not equal, it is exclamation point followed by the equal sign. Not a less than followed by a greater than, just the exclamation point equal sign. And again, here's some examples. All right, here's your order of precedence for arithmetic operations. And now 3 and 4 are pretty much what you learned probably back in grade school or junior high, and that is you do multiplication and division before you do addition and subtraction. Well, modulus is just a form of division. So you do multiplication, division, and modulus before you do addition and subtraction. All right? The increment and decrement, that's the plus plus and the minus minus, you do those before anything else. And the positive and negative are what I showed you. Now, you can always circumvent this by using parentheses. All right? So there is an example of using parentheses. And here's that prefixed and postfix that I mentioned to you before. All right, casting from less precise to more precise. All right, what you're trying to do when you cast typically is to make sure that you're working with apples and apples and not with apples and oranges. So in other words, if I did this, that is going to typically give you exactly what you'd expect. In other words, that should give you 38.3. Okay? And there's really not a problem with doing it that way. Now, what's going to happen is that this should be cast implicitly by the operating system. So in other words, it should change it. If I want to make sure that I'm doing a double plus a double, I can explicitly cast here and do this. Now it's a double plus a double. So now basically it is 21.0 plus 17.3. All right? So they give you some examples of casting. Explicit is when you do it. Implicit means that it's being done for you by the system. It's built into the software. All right? Now, next they talk about the math class. Notice there's a math.round, a math.pow, a math.sqrt, a min, and a max. The round is just that. If you put math.round and you put a number in here like 37.6, and you don't give it a precision or a mode, it should round up to the next highest number. Since it's 0.5 or above, it should give you 38. All right? This is how you do the power function. So if I wanted to do 3 squared, I could say math.pow 3, 2. Okay? Square root, exactly what you think. And then there's a min and a max as well. All right? And they give you some examples that use these. Most of these, hopefully at least to you, are pretty straightforward. All right? I don't want to waste a lot of time on this. All right, then there's a random class. Okay? Let's write a quick, down and dirty little program that'll do a random for us. All right? Now, I haven't shown you this yet, but you should probably understand already that if I come in here and say C# random number between 1 and 100. All right, it'll probably give me a W3 schools someplace near the top. There it is. It's a W3 Schools blog, but it'll be in there someplace. Let's just use the first one that they show here. Oh, it is W3 Schools. All right. I want to show you this because I want to show you what they say in the book here. So let's get rid of this. All right. Random rand equals new rand. What is that doing? This is creating a new instance of the random number class and calling it rand. All right. Then you come in and you say rand.next 0,100. Well, this second number, it gives you a number that's less than that. So it's greater than or equal to 0 and less than 100. So if I wanted a number between 0 and 100, let's say I was generating numbers for a test, I would do that. So I could generate a whole bunch of random numbers that way. Or, for example, if I was going to be doing a program, let's say, that was going to be dealing with dice. All right, I could come in here and say 1 and 7, and that would return a number between 1 and 6. All right, if I was just doing a single throw of a single die, for example. And there's other ones like with doubles, but typically this is what you're going to use. All right, and again, there's some examples. Here's some more examples with two different dice. All right, now joining strings, this is known as string concatenation. I actually showed you this in an earlier example that we went through. All right, and if I don't put this in there, and I type in first name plus last name, I'll get Bob Smith concatenated together. But this is concatenation. I'm saying concatenate together the first name, followed by a single space, followed by the last name. So again, this is going to put Bob space Smith. Exactly what you think it would put in. All right. Now, it says how to join a string and a number. Notice if you do this. All right. It is going to, I think this will say price $14.95. All right, I'd have to try it to be sure, but I believe you can do that without any problem. This we've already looked at. You can use the plus equal. Now, I said previously that the plus equal was used with addition. And it is, because concatenation really is a form of addition. All right, escape sequences, the ones you're going to use probably 99% of the time. \n, which is equal to a new line. \t, which is equal to a tab. Now, there's other ones they're going to mention in here. I'm just keeping it plain and talking about the ones you're going to use most of the time. All right? Again, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that there aren't other ones in here that you could conceivably sometimes use. I'm showing you the ones that you're going to use most of the time. All right? And they give you some examples. All right, raw string literal. If you start up something like this with 3 double quotes and end it with 3 double quotes, then it's going to actually hold every bit of this. I don't know how often I use this. It's not very often. But if you've got some kind of a string literal that you want to go over multiple lines, maybe you were going to say string and you were going to put the name of a poem in here. And let's say it was a fairly short poem that was about that size. You could do that and then have the author's name and then put in this as an example. Maybe not a great example, but hopefully you understand it. And that's the way that it's going to look then. All right. .NET structures that define value types. All right. You'll notice if you look at this, again, that the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all numeric. Then there's bool, which again is true, false, and char for a single character. All right. There's also string and there's object. Now, we've done the toString already. We've already done the toString. What I will do in the next chapter, not in this chapter because I already wrote the payroll program, but we will look at parse and try parse. There's a difference between these. Parse means do it. Try parse means try to do it. You'll notice with try parse there is a result. So try parse returns true or false. True if the parse worked and false if it did not work. All right, so there is a major difference between the two. Let me pause for just a second. I'm working from my living room today, and there's a grandfather clock in here. So, all right. So notice I can try to convert. Again, typically, the way this is used is you take what you put into a text box and you run one of these routines on it. That's typically what you use for the first 3. All right, for the last one, it's kind of the opposite. You already have worked with the toString. You very rarely will probably work with the toChar and the toBool. And there are examples of each of them in here. Now, I am not trying to hold anything back from you. I am not trying to say, well, geez, you're not going over this. Geez, you're not going over that. That's true. I'm not even going to deny that. What I have found in the past when I've taught this class is the faster we can get through the first 11 chapters, the better off we are. Because once we get to chapter 12 and we do 12 to 16, the stuff in there is so different than what we've done previously that you need more time to kind of absorb everything that's in there. And then there's 17 and 18, and finally there'll be 19 to 22 and we'll do some database stuff. So again, with try parse, all right, what this says is attempt to take this and this right here, sales string, and put it into a decimal. If you can do it, take the result and put it into a variable called sales. This will fail because there's a $sign in it. It would succeed if there was no $sign in it. Here are some examples. Again, we'll look at some of these in just a bit. All right. So we've already looked at these toString type of things, and we will look at the convert dot to decimal, etc. in just a bit. All right. You can format things in different ways too. This is using the string dot format. Nothing wrong with it. I'm going to show you different ways. Sometimes I'll show you what's in the book. Sometimes I'll do it differently that's in the book. I would never, ever, ever be trying to say in here, well, you should do it my way because it's better. No, not at all. All right. But I'm just trying to show you different ways, at least quite often, all right, different ways of doing the same thing. All right, class scope. If you define a variable outside of any method, function, whatever you want to call it, then that variable has what's called class scope, which means it can be used throughout the entire program. All right, it can be used throughout the entire program, and you don't have to pass it from routine to routine. It's global to that class. Now, they're going to give a couple of examples in here because what they're going to do a little later is they're going to take this and they're going to convert it into this. Now this is all the same that we had before. Whoops. Try that again. All right. This stuff is all the same as what we had, but we're adding this to it. And notice they now will have a clear button in. I've already got that in mind, so we won't have to add that. All right. So we're about right here. All right. So we'll come in and you'll notice, what are they doing here? Number of invoices and total of invoices. These two things right here are represented by total number of invoices and the total price of all the invoices combined. You take this and divide it by this and you get this. All right, so what I'm going to do quickly, because I don't want to waste your time, is I'm going to come back in here and do kind of what I did before. All right, so let's open this up. In fact, is this still open? It is not. So let's open it. And as you can see, we have in here, we've got our Windows Forms app for Chapter 3, our Windows Forms app for Chapter 1, and our Windows Forms app for Chapter 2. So let's do this. Let's again close this and this. Always, if you're asked if you want to save, probably better to do it anyways, just do a file save all first. Then close everything. All right, close that. Now, I'm going to go back and very similar to what I did before. All right, and that is, and it's not showing it in here, which I find very interesting. Well, let's take this one. This was that Chapter 3. Let's make a copy of this. In fact, we don't even have to make a copy. We've got it here. Did I not? Yeah, I changed that. Yeah, I mean, it is in here. You could see that when I open this, let me remove some of this stuff that's in here. All right. So you can see we've got Chapter 1, 2, and 3 in here. All right. And I'm going to grab this Chapter 3, and I'm going to make two changes to it, kind of like I did before. I'm going to make that a 4. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take that file and make it a 4. All right. Then I'm going to come in here. I don't really want to do it that way. Well, it's the way I'm going to do it. How's that? All right. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to come in, right mouse click on here, choose Add Existing Project. I don't want a new one, sorry. I want to right mouse click, add an existing project, go back to my desktop, find this Windows Forms App 1, Chapter 4, and add this to it. There we go. Now I've got that one added to it. All right. Now what I'm going to do, so I don't have to waste time, okay, you'll notice these look the same, but I've got the code in here that I want. This is the code from Chapter 3. Well, that was interesting anyway. Let's go back in here and do this. All right, for some reason now, yeah, it doesn't have that anymore. Oh my goodness. Did I still have the code in all of these? Yes, I do. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to remove this form invoice total from right here. So I'm going to delete that. I'm doing a lot of stuff you really shouldn't do. I'm going to right mouse click, choose copy. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to choose paste. All right, hopefully now I'm okay. And I want to come into this one that I'm in right here. So let me close. I want to make sure everything's closed so I'm not screwing anything up. So here's the one for Chapter 4. All right, so there it is. I'm going to change the color again of the form. All right, if you remember in Chapter 1, I think we kept it the main color. Chapter 2, we made it yellow. Chapter 3, we made it purple. In fact, maybe Chapter 1, I don't know. Was Chapter 1? No, that is gray. Chapter 2, it was yellow. Close all these. Chapter 3, that's where I think it was green. It is. So let's do Chapter 4 right now. And it still looks like it's green. I'm going to close both of these and open this. Now I am going to make this purple. Okay, I did that before, but I did it for the payroll one that we did. So let's come in here. We'll make it a different color yet. Okay, what else do we have? How about this fuchsia or whatever that is? We'll make that. And we'll do the same thing here. All right, and I'm going to make the foreground color for these white. Okay, you might like that, you might not. It doesn't really matter. It's okay the way it is. Let's make sure my other one still looks right. Good. That's terrific. All right, so we've got this. And what we want to do now is we want to make changes to this. So I'm going to first right mouse click on here and unlock my controls. All right, I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to move these over because it showed them as being moved over. All right, and I'm going to, again, all I'm trying to do right here, all I'm trying to do right here is to basically mimic this. So I want 3 here. Okay. Now we have 4 here. Enter subtotal, subtotal. Okay. All right. That's the way they want to do it. That's not a problem. All right. I'm going to move these down. I'm going to move these down. In fact, move those down. And then I'm going to grab these 2 and make a copy. Like that. Move these down just a bit. That's pretty good. That a little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to take these 3 and make a copy. And what am I doing here? I'm basically trying to parrot what is shown in the book or in the slides right here. All right, I've got enter subtotal and subtotal. So when you look in here, if you compare this, in fact, let's take a picture of it. I do this a lot. As I did a print screen right there. And I'm going to take a picture of this. They call it the enhanced invoice total form. Fine. There it is. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you both of these as best I can. All right. So this will have to say enter subtotal. This is going to be changed. Discount percent, discount amount, and total. Calculate, clear, and exit. So this will be number of invoices, total of invoices, and average of invoices. Hopefully all of that made at least a bit of sense. All right, so I want this to say enter subtotal. So this will become LBL, enter, oops, enter subtotal. And this will say enter subtotal, like that. This will still be subtotal, but this will now be a read-only field. And we're going to make some changes as we go along. It's no big thing. All right, so this again will have to be read-only. All right, so that's done. And I got to change these three, the names of these three things. So this first one was called number of invoices. Now I don't know, I might not have enough room here. I may have made that a little bit see, it's a little bit, doesn't really fit in there. All right, so how do we fix that? Well, a lot of ways. All right, there, I just made that a little bigger. So I've got number of invoices. So that is LBL number of invoices, which means this should be TXT number of invoices. All right. This is total, I think it was total of invoices. Total of invoices, and then we've got average of invoices. So this will be total of invoices. LBL total of invoices. And that'll mean that this is TXT total of invoices. All right, and this last one is average of invoices. So again, it'll probably be a little bit it has to be a little bigger. So I'm just going to call it LBL AVG of invoices. Instead of the word average, I'm going to use AVG. So it looks like that. And this will be TXT AVG of invoices. Again, I'm going to come through here. Whoops. I'm going to come through here and I'm going to lock this. So I think I locked everything by just grabbing one of them. All right. Okay, so that's what I have. Now these, the number of invoices, the total, these are all going to be read-only fields. All right. So the only one I'm adding stuff into is right here. Everything else is going to be whatever you want to call it, automated or whatever. So let's do a file, save all, and let's just run it. I'm not expecting it to work right yet, so we've got that. And we've got this application configuration error, which I have not seen before, so that's interesting. The app config file is invalid. Could not find desktop Windows Forms app 1 chapter. Okie dokie. Oh my goodness, am I working with this one? No, I'm not. I want to be in here for chapter 4. You just, at least on occasion, will run into problems when you copy the way that I've been copying it, there's probably a better way to do it, and I should investigate that. I just never have, which is stupid on my part. Copy this. So let's see. I'll tell you how we'll fix it. Let's see. Just give me a second here. All right. Let's come in and do this namespace. Let's rename this and name it 4, because it should be that. No. All right. So it doesn't like that. Now it's giving me an error, and it's giving me an error probably because of what's in here. Not in here, I'm sorry, in here. Somewhere in here, it's looking for a file that it cannot find. Let's put it that way. All right, and the file it's looking for could not find the file. Desktop, Windows Forms App 1 app config. Let's look in here. All right. Bin debug. Copy. I'm doing all sorts of stuff here I probably shouldn't be doing, so I'm sorry about that. See, it's all of this stuff is still going over the chapter 2, even though I'm on chapter 4. I don't like any of this. All right, I'm going to see if I can fix it right now. So let me go and do this. All right, I'm in here, and I'm going to close everything. The first thing I'm going to do is go back to my chapter 3, because that's where this started. And I'm going to right mouse click on chapter 3 and choose properties. The assembly name here should be 03. The default namespace should be 03. I don't know if that's going to fix it for this chapter or make it worse, so we'll see. File, save all. Let me close this. Now I'm going to try doing the same thing for chapter 4. Make that a 4. Make that a 4. File, save all. Now, I'm going to try to close everything. So I'm going to close this Visual Studio. Now I'm going to open this Visual Studio. All right. And I'm going to open this back up. And I've still got my 3 and 4. I want to see if I broke them or not. So once this comes up, there it is. I'm going to tell it that I want to set 3 as my startup project and run it. Let's see if it's broken or not. And it's broken. See that? Doesn't like anything that I've done here. Oh my goodness. We're going to end up doing this as a class, and if we have to do it as separate projects, all right, then we'll just do it as separate projects. I don't really care. All right. I'm just going to go back to this one. I don't want you to watch me fumble around here. So let's go back to this one. We're going to take this, and we're going to make this our startup project, and we're going to run it to see if I get an error here now or not. I'm not. So again, all right, that's good. That's actually totally working. The only thing I have to do is reproduce that here and then add these. All right, so let's clear, let's exit, and let's fix this. So calculate. Calculate final total. All right. The first thing that they showed in the book here, or in our notes, was we should have and I'm jumping all over the place. I'm sorry about that. These two things in here. All right, for our totals. There they are. So I'm going to copy those, if it'll let me, copy. And then up at the top here, those are my two variables. That's the total number of invoices. That's the total number of invoices right there. And that is the actual amount. So if I had 2 invoices, if I had one for 400 and one for 600, number of invoices would be 2. Total of invoices would be 1,000. I'm going to make another one here, even though they don't do it like this. And I'm going to call this average of invoices. And I'm going to set that equal to 0M as well. Now, with this number of invoices, I don't know why that's a decimal. Should be able to make that an int and make it 0. That's the total number that I had. All right, sorry about that. All right, I'd like to finish this up if we can. Sorry about that. All right, so what are we doing here? Well, you've seen all this stuff. And we did come in here, and we've got all this. Now, once we get in here, and we have figured all of this stuff out, all right, so if it's this, else if it's this, else if it's this, etc. All right, well, we know we've added 1 to our number of invoices. So I can say plus plus number of invoices. All right. I can also say total of invoices plus equal subtotal. All right. And we'll do the average at the, well, we can do the average too right away. average of invoices equal total of invoices divided by number of invoices. All right. Now, when it does that division, it'll be an int that I'm going to make that a double. We'll make that a decimal. Okay. So we've got all that stuff. In fact, let's do this after we've done every calculation. So that's right here. All right. So this is calculate individual discount amount, calculate individual invoice total, and this is to calculate the group totals. All right. So copy these to their counterparts. Okay. TXT what do we call that one? This is subtotal, TXT subtotal, I believe. So we've got TXT enter subtotal and this should be TXT subtotal. That is now TXT enter subtotal, and this is LBL subtotal. And this is TXT subtotal. All right. Now we're going to have to make a few changes in here. Don't worry about these errors. They're going to go away in a minute. All right. So when we're figuring all this stuff out, everywhere we're using subtotal, we want to change it to enter sub. Well, we can keep it as enter sub. So this will be, yeah, TXT enter subtotal. Good. That's perfect. All right. So this will be TXT subtotal dot text equal TXT enter subtotal dot text dot toString currency. So we've got all that. We're going to get it just a second. All right. We'll do that. And let's see. TXT number of invoices dot text equals number of invoices dot toString. We don't need to do any formatting. TXT total of invoices dot text equals total of invoices dot toString currency. TXT average of invoices dot text equals average of invoice, should be invoices, okay, average of invoices dot toString currency. All right, what else do we have in here that's still erroring out? Right here, this application file. I'm going to have to check on that. So let me do a file, save all, and give me just a second. I'm going to pause the video, and we'll come back in just a moment. All right, I'm looking at this right now, and again, It's because I've changed some of this stuff and some of it didn't change. Let's go back here to properties again and see if there's anything that I didn't change. 404, this application, startup default. No, those have all been set. Son of a gun. Application configuration file is invalid. Could not find. Crud. And part of the reason I'm getting this, just so you know, it's my own stupidity, is when I went in here and was changing all this stuff, this should have all been changed. That should have been a 4. See, and it gives me a bunch of other errors when I do that then, unfortunately. And when I go in there and manually try to change it like this to a rename, and I change it to a 4, it's going to give me errors, I believe, as well. It says the designer could not be refactored. It's auto-generated and only supports renaming through the Managed Resources editor. I'm going to say no here. Leave it like this and see if I can change it. Oh, this is a pain in the butt. I've got all the right code in here. It's just that it's all these names that I've been dealing with. I should never have done this. I should have just written this and then rewritten it and rewritten it again. And now it looks like I've screwed this one up too. Son of a gun. Let's see if we make massive changes in here, if I can make this better or worse. All right. So I'm going to come in here and change this. I want to see if I can rename this. And I'm going to call this Invoice Total Chapter 5, like that. All right. And I don't know if this is, when I end up with here, if this is going to make it any better or worse. I have absolutely no idea. All right. This is that app config file. But I'm going to do a file, save app config as desktop chapter 4 app config. That's the way it should be, actually. Yeah. But it's looking for an app 3 in here someplace. That's the problem. Well, let's see if I save that as app 3, if it fixes it. So I went back in and I saved it as 3. I don't know if it's going to give me a different error now or not, or if it's going to run it or what it's going to do. Well, let's try it. Let's put in a few of these. Enter subtotal, 1,000. Calculate. 1,000, 20%, 200, 800, 1,000. Fine. Let's clear. I've got to clear that one, and I didn't, so that's another thing that'll have to be fixed. Let's put in 500. 500, 20%, to 1,500. That appears to be working now. All right. And again, when I clear, I've got to make sure I'm clearing this subtotal as well. And I'm not clearing it right now. So if I put in $50, this should say 3, this should say 1,550, and this should say 516.66 or something like that. 67. All right, so it's all working. All right. I sure don't like the way I did that, but it is all working. All right. Let's go back and make that one change. So that is in our clear button. Get rid of that. Bring that up. Bring that up. And in our clear form, that should fix the problem that we had. So now when I click clear, this one should clear, and it does. Okay, so all that is now working. Now to go back to where I was, because it sounds like I'm flipping all over the place. We kind of left off right, I don't know, about here. All right. Class scope means that since I took those two variables, plus I made an average one, and I created those outside of any, they're not inside of any routine. I put mine above this initialized component. You can put it above or below it. It doesn't matter. But these have class scope, meaning that I can use them in any routine that's in the class. And we actually are in here. So there's in the clear. Terms you should know, scope. Scope is where something is active. Who knows what and where, for lack of better words. All right, who knows what and where, for lack of better words. All right, one thing I'm going to do, just so I don't forget it, and I'm going to look this up and talk to you about it later, and that is I'm going to type in here how to copy one C# project to another C# project within the, within the same C# solution. All right, and there will be something in here on doing that, copying WinForms between projects, etc. All right, and I'll look at that and show you that later once I take a better look at it. All right, method scope means that you create a variable inside of a function or a method. It's only known there. Class scope is what I just showed you. Lifetime of a variable, the class variable or class scope, the variable lasts as long. It lasts as long as the class, basically as long as the program's up and running and the class is active. Method goes out of scope, so it goes away once the method is no longer running. All right. This is form border style. We don't really care. This is an enumeration. All right. We're not going to talk about this right now, other than I'm just going to give you a couple things about it. When you create an enumeration, you're creating your own variable type. All right. This is a new variable that's called terms. Its possible values are net 30 days, which has an integer value of 1, net 60 days, which has an integer value, net 30 days has an integer value of 0, net 60 days has an integer value of 1, and net 90 days has an integer value of 2. Why would you want to use these? Well, notice you don't have to make them 0, 1, and 2. We can make them, for example, 30, 60, and 90. You don't actually have to put this short there. You can, but you don't have to. You're making your own variable type when you use these. So you can create a variable of that type, but it can only hold this value or this value or this value. If it holds this value, it has that numeric value. If it holds this value, it has that numeric value. And if it holds this value, it has that numeric value. And that's what they show you here. All right. How to declare a value type that can contain null values. Well, notice right here, this. Try that again. It says int question mark quantity. If you put a question mark after the variable type like that, that means it is permissible for that variable to hold null. Null means unknown. If you don't put this question mark here and you try to do this, you're going to get an error. All right? And they're using some here as well. We'll look at it more in class. Now, if you want to know whether it has a value or not, there is a has value routine that you can use. All right? All righty. This is the null coalescing operator. And in English, what it means is if there is a quantity, so if quantity has been set that to QTY. If no quantity has been set -1 to QTY. So it's kind of like using the question mark colon operator. All right? And they're using it here too. Okay. We're going to work with these, but not so much in this class. You'll actually work with this kind of stuff more in the AWD1100 class, just so you know that. Now, they talk about common situations when warnings are displayed. You know, if you've got a situation where you've got variables, which it is possible that they will hold a value of null, meaning they will hold a value of unknown. If that is the case, you might use these. If you're not going to really be working with nulls, this is kind of moot. You really don't even have to know about it. So this is what they had. We went back in and we added this. You saw we just did that together. All right. I added these class variables, number of invoices, total of invoices, AVG of invoices. Okay. And then we set these inside of here. I may not have done it exactly the way that it was done in the book, but we get the same results. All right. And that's pretty much it for this chapter. Now, I'm sorry that it came up and it was, for lack of better words, a little bit funky. And again, that when we went in and we looked at this, that we had this error right here. All right, but we can go in and run this. You see it works. I'm going to put in 3 values. 100, boom. 10% discount. All right, we'll put in 4 or 5 values. Let's clear this. Notice we're not clearing any of these. 500, where we get the 20% discount. We've now got 2, 100, and 500 is 600. Divided by 2 is 3. Let's put in 300. We get the 15% discount. All the math appears to be working. 100 and 500 and 300 is 900 divided by 3 is 300. Finally, we'll put one more in here that will just be $80. So that should be 4,980. 980 divided by 4, which will be like 245 or something like that. There you go. Everything is working. All right. So that's it for this chapter. When I come back into the next chapter, let's see. We'll be going over Chapter 5, which is how to code control structures. All right. So I'll be back with that in just a few minutes.